Welcome, Climate Viewers. This is Jim Lee from ClimateViewer News at ClimateViewer.com. Going to talk a little bit about contrails. Contrails and chemtrails, chemtrails and contrails. Pick your poison. I call them plain farts, but been talking about them for quite a long time. Just did a video with Mike Morales. If you guys didn't watch that, hope you check him out on YouTube, user Kart Racer. You can go to my YouTube channel and obviously click right over to there. And shout out to the haters in chat already, Illuminati logo. I am definitely a part of the Illuminati. As you can see, the Illuminati has furnished my double wide opulently. And I really appreciate everybody from the Illuminati who has donated. So on that note, please remember to subscribe to my main YouTube channel where you can hear a lot about geoengineering, chemtrails, plain farts, pollution, privacy, and propaganda. And everything that I do is supported by viewers like you monthly at patreon.com/climateviewer or a one-time donation on PayPal. That's always greatly appreciated. So like I said, all this information is free of charge and open source. You can remix it, do whatever you like with it. I don't really care. That's why I'm now broadcasting on multiple different sources. Thank you to everybody tuning in. I see a couple people from D Live over there, Sleeping Like Babies and Red Pill. All three, Michael Vincent, Trace, Florida, I believe, Jacqueline McIntosh. Thank you guys for tuning in. Oh, and thank you for that new subscriber. I like that little running zombie man there. We're going to have to change that GIF out in the near future. But I've got a little ring-a-ling thing going on here, so you might notice some new changes to that. But anyway, let's get to the topic du jour. This is an article that recently came up on the Weather Channel. Global warming caused by airplane contrails poised to increase, new study says. Really? This is dated June 28th, 2019. Now, I've been talking about this for quite some time, as my longtime followers will note. And this is, just interesting to me that, it's like, hey, new study says that, planes might screw up the atmosphere and lead to global warming and things like that. And of course, I covered this the day, 3 days after it was originally published. This is dated June 28th. I put a video out. Contrail cirrus, melting poles, release anthrax and mercury, and the new Cold War for Arctic drilling on June 30th. Following the original posting, it turns out planes are even worse for the climate than we thought on New Scientist. This was 27 June 2019. So, interestingly enough, I've been talking about this for quite some time, and it amazes me that, it's taken them 4 years since we had a hearing in Washington, D.C. about this very topic. And I was warning them that things like the BBC said telescopes would be worthless by 2050. Ground-based astronomy could be impossible in 40 years because of pollution from aircraft exhaust trails and climate change. And climate change, my ass. This is obviously one of those situations where you go, and climate change, really? We're talking about clouds here. Clouds screwing up the atmosphere and making it to where my children by 2050 and their grandchildren may not even be able to see the stars. That's why I went to Washington, D.C. That's why I made an EPA hearing happen. And that's why it's so important to me. You can read all about that on ClimateViewer.com. If you go to any one of my articles, you'll notice there's a section down here at the bottom that says featured, must see, and these are all of my presentations: ionospheric heaters, space weather control and geophysical warfare, the climate changers and water wars, technocracy, geoengineering, and replacing the water cycle, the Environmental Modification Accountability Act, 10 technologies to own the weather today, geoengineering, weather modification, and weaponizing nature. Each of these has a PowerPoint presentation that is very lengthy. You can send this to your senator. It will blow their freaking mind. And finally, August 9th, 2015, my speech to the EPA about flight pollution. And at this presentation, and as you can see, I actually have the entire transcript of what I said there. This is the final transcript of August 11th, 2015. You can see that this was also available on C-SPAN. I got a link here somewhere. But regardless, you can see the original C-SPAN version of this. And this is my speech. I had 10 minutes, and I read all this in 10 minutes. It was very quick. And then I have all of the references at the bottom here, so you can actually scroll and see these. I did my homework, and you can actually learn a lot from this speech. Now, I said it would take 3 years before people even got what I was saying at this hearing. But I want to reiterate it today because it's interesting to see, it's now 2019, and they're acting like this is news. This BBC article is dated 2006 about telescopes being worthless because of chemtrails, because of contrails, because of contrail cirrus clouds. Planes making cirrus clouds that block out sunlight and apparently block out stars and could make telescopes worthless by 2050. And they specifically say in here that, because, that air traffic is going to double, triple, quadruple by 2050, it's going to be even worse. So you can see their video here. They trap heat. New study found the contrails warming effect on the climate is expected to triple by 2050. There's that number again. That's 4 times the amount from 2006. Oh, that's the date of the article, the BBC article I just showed you. So they're trying to figure out every kind of way to supposedly save us from global warming. Yet, every time they have a climate change conference, everybody's on their private jet flying there to it. So ironic, yes. Expected, surely. Previous research showed how contrails, which are similar to cirrus clouds, trap heat. Air travel was predicted to quadruple over a 44-year period starting in 2006, same year this article was written. And the effects of contrails on global warming are expected to triple. So it's only going to get worse. And that's the point of all this. So if you guys don't mind, I'd like to play my video for you. And hopefully you guys will enjoy this. This is my speech to the EPA. Uno momento. Apparently I'm not getting my audio. Let me fix this real quick. Let's see if this makes it work. Technicalities. You gotta love it, right? Oh, that would be why. So let's add this. Let me add just give me 1 second, guys. I need to add another audio source here. Done, and let's see if it works now.
Hi, my name is James Lee. I'm from Sumter, South Carolina. I'm a citizen. Why is the EPA claiming that 6 greenhouse gases emitted from jet planes are a threat to human health under the Clean Air Act while doing nothing to address ongoing lawsuits over leaded aviation gasoline or the real health concerns of stakeholders worldwide? Cancer-causing heavy metals in fuels and their additives and aviation-induced cloudiness. You, the EPA, claim the authority to regulate aviation emissions under the Clean Air Act, a law that should protect us from the aforementioned poisonous pollution. However, the definition of pollution is being perverted to mean climate change gases in what can only be called a violation of the spirit of the law. Air pollution which may reasonably be anticipated to endanger public health or welfare. That's the quote. As you can see by the wording in the Clean Air Act, lead, barium, aluminum, and trade secret toxic chemicals clearly present a greater danger to public health than greenhouse gases, no matter how much climate science you accumulate. Furthermore, material safety data sheets of aviation fuel and their additives almost always contain the same warning: do not dump in water. Yet, raw fuel dumping or burning these dangerous chemicals and then dumping them in water is somehow safe. Finally, despite great efforts to find bioaccumulation or biomagnification studies on precipitated aviation pollutants, none seem to exist. The EPA and Obama administration are ignoring the global outrage over the most visible climate change concern from airplanes: cloud creation. Do a search for the word chemtrails on the internet, and you will see millions of concerned citizens who look up and wonder, what in the world are they spraying? Despite what you may think of the myriad of maladies attributed to these clouds, the global outrage is nonetheless clear. They are right to be worried, and we should all be concerned. The EPA's claim that CO2 is a greater threat to human health than contrails and aviation-induced cloudiness is based on incomplete IPCC data that downplays the effects of contrails on our climate. The IPCC's fourth assessment of contrail radiative forcing only accounted for linear contrails, meaning any contrail that spreads out and turns into cirrus clouds was not accounted for. How significant is this heat-trapping contrail conundrum? Quote, contrails formed by aircraft can evolve into cirrus clouds indistinguishable from those formed naturally. These spreading contrails may be causing more climate warming today than all the carbon dioxide emitted by aircraft since the start of aviation. Another researcher stated a single aircraft operating in conditions favorable for persistent contrail formation appears to exert a contrail-induced radiative forcing some 5,000 times greater than the estimates of the average persistent contrail radiative forcing from the entire civil aviation fleet. Why did I lose my place? Although this research has now been incorporated into the IPCC computer models and revised down, in my opinion, these claims highlight gaping holes in climate science. As of 2013, quote, aerosol cloud interactions are one of the main uncertainties in climate research. Scientific understanding of how contrails transition into cirrus clouds is severely lacking but rapidly evolving, with the latest research showing that cirrus clouds are filled with metal aerosols from human sources. Quote, the big one we found is lead. coming from things like tetraethyl lead in fuels, still used today in light aviation. So that's probably the biggest metal that we find, or the most frequent metal that we find, but we find a whole host of different metals actually. Apparently, small amounts of metal particulates have major effects on cirrus clouds. Quote, "It would seem that you would have to change all of the aerosol in the atmosphere very radically to get a big effect on the clouds, but because mineral dust and metallic particles are such a small amount of the particulate matter, just a % or two, it means that you only have to change about a % or two of the particles to get a big effect on these clouds." The latest research casts doubts on the IPCC's contrail assumptions and requires serious consideration when addressing the real climate change impact of aviation. High-altitude metals in cirrus cloud condensation nuclei are likely coming from leaded avgas and jet exhaust. Contrails are making cirrus clouds, and small changes in atmospheric metal have large impacts on cirrus cloud creation. Cirrus clouds trap heat and are likely to have a greater climate change impact than CO2. Finally, aviation-induced cloudiness endangers future growth in solar energy, affects tourism and spending, and is projected to make terrestrial astronomy impossible by 2050. Geoengineering scientists, NASA, NOAA, FAA, USDA, DOE, and international corporate partners are discussing the use of biofuels and sulfur-doped jet fuels for contrail control. This cirrus cloud seeding with bismuth triiodide to melt these clouds away. The EPA should be directly involved in these discussions. As a result of these recent findings, I strongly encourage the EPA to consider expanding the scope of this endangerment to include metal particulates and cloud formation from jet exhaust. If the EPA complies with the spirit of the Clean Air Act, they will protect us from metal aerosols attributed to Alzheimer's, autism, cancer, and a plethora of other debilitating illnesses. If the EPA is truly concerned about aviation-induced climate change, they will regulate the production of contrails and cirrus clouds, which change our climate to a much greater extent than the sum of the 6 greenhouse gases named in this proposal. Regulating heavy metals and aviation-induced cloudiness will be meaningless without proper verification. Even though ICAO members sign a binding agreement to only use certain chemicals in their gas tanks, we all know agreements and regulations are useless without proper verification. Therefore, I request mandatory, random testing of jet exhaust be immediately implemented. This is the most important step the EPA can take to do its due diligence to protect us from harmful pollution and get real-world data to improve future regulations. Most of the data behind this endangerment finding comes from research in highly controlled environments where most variables are known. We need verification of non-ideal situations where fuel fouling, fame contamination, or improper maintenance end in vastly different exhaust particulates than seen in lab settings. To achieve verification, I propose that the EPA randomly attach a trailing probe to both foreign and domestic flights, then collect and analyze the results to determine real-world exhaust constituents. Alternatively, ground-based LiDAR observations may be possible over fixed high-traffic areas and prevent possible terrorist attacks using aerosols. Either way you choose, we need verification and protection. In conclusion, the EPA should expand this endangerment to include metal aerosols and cloud creation, create a verification system that includes all aircraft, protects us from aviation pollution, holds violators accountable, and commits to better scientific accuracy for future determinations. Thank you for this opportunity to speak on behalf of so many who could not be here. And thank you for listening to a layperson's views on this subject. While I appreciate the efforts of the Center for Biological Diversity, the Sierra Group, and the Friends of the Earth to get the EPA to hold the aviation industry accountable, the poor people like myself have to live near these airports, under these fuel dumps, and under these clouded skies. I hope that some faith can be restored in our EPA by your action here and now. Tell the ICAO that they will meet your demands and our demands, not the other way around. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Thank you for all of your comments. Second panel. Next one.
Yes, thank you.
So I was sitting next to
My name is Michael Saraceno. I'm a citizen.
I was sitting next to the head of the Pilots Association, and you could see he was visibly uncomfortable by my comments. And I was joined by Michael Saraceno at MikeSarah444 on Twitter. I brought a couple more of my friends. Mike talked about autism rates around airports. And he gave one of the best speeches, very scientific. I printed it as well on ClimateViewer.com. You can read that one, his entire transcript as well with his references. And then after that, I brought Amanda Bays, aka Madison Star Moon, who multiple times has called on
Good morning. My name is Amanda Bays, and I live in Virginia Beach, Virginia. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to you today.
So I didn't want to go by myself, even though I made the hearing happen. I was the only person to write in saying I wanted a hearing. I reached out to Amanda. I said, hey, you're very vocal about this. We don't agree on everything, but I'd like you to come give your perspective. And she did, and she's called many different government agencies over the years trying to get answers, and they always, stonewall her. I also had another person you may know come with me, Patrick Roddy from Stop Spraying, San Francisco.
My name is Patrick Roddy. I'm a San Francisco-based anti-geoengineering activist
and
and
sitting
researcher,
right next to him is Mr. Max Bliss.
Today's hearing is supposed to address whether greenhouse gas emissions from aircraft endanger public health. But when you mention greenhouse gas, most people think of carbon dioxide, a harmless trace gas essential to all life on Earth. But CO2 represents just 3% of the planet's greenhouse gas. 95% of it is water. Even preschoolers know overcast skies make the nights warmer and the days cooler. Clouds
Nailed it. And then my favorite line of the entire show was given out by Max Bliss, who dropped the NWO bombshell at the end there. Appreciate you subscribing. Love that. Max just rips him a new one at the end. And, Max Bliss is a very good friend of mine. I don't know what I would do without Max. He's kind of gotten off of the social media. But just to give you guys an idea, this is Max Bliss's emails. This is all from 9/10. This is from 9/11. And you can see ultrafine aerosol particle in aircraft plumes, impact of alternative jet fuels on aircraft-induced aerosols. I mean, I get emails from Max every single day, lengthy emails, about every single, I don't know that you guys will be able to read that, but basically these are all Max Bliss emails to this day, where every day he's dropping me links and, giving me plenty to read to stay up on this. But I just want you guys to hear Max really rip him a new one at the end of this, because this is priceless.
At least stopped. The notion that the climate science is settled is often repeated over and over by interested stakeholders, such as those looking for lucrative funding in the burgeoning climate change arena, be it academics, politicians, or entrepreneurs looking for success or to get rich, or more darkly, hoping to implement a one-world government system. Climate has always had natural variability and weather extremes. However, these days, some weather extremes can be stimulated with technology. Is it appropriate to reassess the anthropogenic global warming theory and replace it with climate change is man-made by using covert weather and climate modification technology known as geoengineering for geopolitical ends?
And that's why I always say, don't blame climate change, blame the climate changers. Don't blame climate change, blame the climate changers. If you don't know the history of weather modification and geoengineering, go to weathermodificationhistory.com and get to studying. Drop some more bombs, Max.
We do not need to be scientists to observe the sky and see the obvious negative effects aviation is having and research the spiralling health impacts. Just start looking up and wake up. We do not consent to the use of weather and climate modification or the despotic New World Order. God bless and peace for all.
Drop the mic. We do not consent to the New World freaking order. So yeah, Max Bliss there dropping bombshells. This was like one of the greatest days of my life. You know, like I went into it with so much nerves. And I'm glad that I had my friends there with me. I'm glad that I reached out to them and said, hey, you know, I've got this hearing thing coming up. Will you please come? And they came. So when I say that a small group of dedicated individuals can change the planet, this is one of those cases where we really tried. And, you know, you're not going to win. Just, you know, one hearing is never enough. In fact, if you go over to ClimateViewer.com, and you click on Geoengineering up here at the top of the bar. Let me bring it up on the screen. And you click on Geoengineering up here at the top of the bar. What you'll do is you'll scroll down a little bit and you'll hear about David Keith talking about how geoengineering is going to kill people. You scroll past the fact and you'll see that I have two subsections, one on HAARP and one on chemtrails. If you click on the chemtrails one, it will take you to my page, climateviewer.com/cirrus clouds matter, and that's where you're going to learn all about this topic. I cover every type of chemtrail there is, from the military to the commercial, the biofuels for contrail control, and everything in between. I've even got, there's Chris Fallon, the director of HAARP, talking to Paul Delgado from Fox News 13, who's a meteorologist that I've been arguing with at length that sounding rockets are chemtrails from space. And he said, you know, you're doing the best under your circumstances here, but some pictures, here are some pictures of trimethyl aluminum trails from sounding rockets launched from Poker Flat Research Range at north of the University of Alaska Fairbanks. In other words, legitimate chemtrail science. So that's pretty priceless. But scroll down past the cirrus cloud fact. I've got a whole lot of stuff, how language controls the chemtrail debate, what makes a cirrus cloud, carbon black dust, or cirrus clouds a bad thing, what are they doing about them, are they melting the poles. All of this stuff has been on my website for quite some time. The EPA hearing stuff, from before the hearing, when Senior Policy Advisor Lucy Audette tried to talk me out of coming to the hearing, which of course I said no to, and then the hearing happening. And then finally, right here is the nuts and bolts of what happened as a result. So in 2013, there was an article called Jet Biofuel Enlisted for Contrail Control. And this is the plan. The plan is to use biofuels or greenwashing, or using things like chicken fat or camelina plant, or all of these different algae-based jet fuel, landfill waste to jet fuel. All of this stuff they're called biofuels, or alternative aviation fuel. They're trying to figure out ways to control these clouds so that they don't heat the planet up, they cool the planet. But I make the argument on my page that for 100 years they've been talking about melting the poles. Why would they stop now? So really, I believe there's two camps at work here: the ones that want to melt the poles, and the ones who claim that global warming is a problem and we want to stop that. So anyway, that was 2013. 2015, we had the hearing. July 25th, 2016. This is during the Trump-Hillary election. All of what I'm about to tell you happened during the Trump-Hillary election. Great distraction from all this. July 25th, 2016, breaking EPA to limit greenhouse gases from airplanes. So for the first time in history, the aviation industry was going to be held to account, and there were going to be laws passed to, whip their ass. And then suddenly Obama steps in and says, July 31st, 2016, White House releases Federal Alternative Jet Fuel Research and Development Strategy, aka the government steps in and says, we're going to use biofuels to fix this problem. September 3rd, 2016. China, U.S., and Europe pledge support for Global Aviation Emissions Pact, which includes using biofuels for contrail control. September 12th. These are like weeks apart practically. 2016. Greens move to dismiss EPA lawsuit over airplane emissions. So even though we had a hearing, even though the EPA found that, yes, they are a danger to, they are a danger to human health. This is a serious problem. We're going to write regulations on it. The people who started the lawsuit, Sierra Group, Friends of the Earth, all of them were like, you know what? On second thought, China, Europe, U.S., Obama, they've all agreed to fix this themselves. They're going to police themselves. So we don't need you really to step in. And then a year later, non-governmental organizations slam UN Aviation Agency plan for biofuels. Imagine the irony of that. So when it's all said and done, this is a problem that's not going away anytime. Yeah, and Jacqueline, no one even saw it, any of it. Most people never heard that there was a hearing. Most people to this day don't know that we had a hearing. They definitely don't know about all the plans for the biofuels that are going on. They definitely don't know about the access flights. I've interviewed Dr. Rangasai Halthori. He's the head of the Aviation Climate Change Research Initiative at the FAA. And he is the guy in charge of the biofuels for contrail control program. They did Access 1 and 2. Now they're doing the ND Max studies with FAA, NASA, German DLR, where they're still testing these biofuels. So when it's all said and done, this contrail conundrum, this cirrus cloud problem, is a seriously big problem. Because if they don't get their feces consolidated, they're going to end up paying carbon taxes through the wazoo. Right now, the biggest expense for the airline industry is jet fuel. If they don't figure out how to turn these heat-trapping clouds into cooling clouds, their carbon tax could literally ground these flights. And everybody's heard the new Green Deal, the Green New Deal, talking about, grounding all flights, except, of course, for the ultra-rich who will still have their private jets and everything. We all know how that goes. But regardless, people don't understand the enormity of this problem. People don't understand that there is a military aspect to this as well. I covered this. It's on the front page of ClimateViewer News right now, or actually it's on my YouTube channel. If you're searching for me on YouTube, you might want to type in Jim Lee ClimateViewer. Include the word ClimateViewer if you're searching for me. Otherwise, you're not going to find me. They've got me buried way down deep. But you can see it over here. I just did a video right here. Military chemtrails, artificial clouds, and directed energy weapons in space. And this is specifically about the military side of things, where the military straight up says, we want to and can create cirrus clouds and stratus clouds to block out spy satellites in space and to make nighttime operations more effective. So on a battlefield, block out moonlight, make it darker. So I try to look at it from all aspects. I'm not just talking about pollution coming from commercial flights. I'm also talking about military programs. I talk about it all. So I hope that you guys will look into this a little deeper. And what you're going to realize is this is a far more complex problem than most people would let you know. And if you don't believe me, just go over to ClimateViewer.com and watch me debate the Grand Wizard, the Grand Poobah, Darth Vader of chemtrails, Mick West from Contrail Science. And literally, he just basically says, you can't say the C word. Don't say the C word. The C word is bad. And I explain all the reasons why he's wrong, because 90% of this comes down to semantics. And if you understand that, and you understand that this problem has been going on for 70 years, that literally the airline industry was sued in 1972 over chemtrails blocking out the sun. Cirrus clouds coming from planes. They called it smoke pollution of the sky in the newspapers. So this problem, and guess what? When they got sued, they got out of it then. When they got sued at the EPA hearing in 2015, they got out of it again. So there's nobody who's stopping the airline industry from doing this. And it's going to take a groundswell of people who are educated on this topic to really make a difference. So I hope that you guys will be part of that. I hope that you'll get educated about it and be part of the change. So I just gave you a whole lot of information to chew on, and I hope that you'll remember that information is powerful, and with great power comes great responsibility. So please remember to use this information to attack ideas, not people. If you like this video, please remember to smash that like button. Leave me a comment. What do you think? Do you think we're going to be able to stop this cloud problem anytime during our lifetimes? Is it going to be our children's lifetime before something is done about it? Will you please support this channel by joining a monthly donation on Patreon or PayPal? Give a single donation. I greatly appreciate that. And remember that sharing is caring. So please share this video with as many people as possible, because I am as censored as they come. I am blacklisted. I am buried. You will not be getting this in your suggested video feed, and the bell rarely works. So I love you, meanie guys. Appreciate you sticking it out. For all you who made it to the end of the video, you're extra special indeed. And I appreciate all you climate viewers. Y'all have a wonderful night.
Kids are impressionable. That's why here at this station, we watch the programs and commercials your child watches carefully. He may see bad guys, but not in the role of heroes. And he'll learn that crime doesn't pay. Because your child's welfare is our concern, too. That's part of our code.
Better than anything you can get without a prescription. Anything. It's the best.